I do find it hard to watch stuff that I did when I was younger because I see so much of what I didn't achieve.
What first sparked your interest in acting?
Acting in general. I think apart from trampolining, it was the only thing that made me feel like it was worth pursuing. Obviously, my trampolining career didn't pan out, so I'm glad I had acting to fall back on.
I love that. Imagine if that was what would happen.
Imagine, and then you have children, and then your trampolining days are done. So, yeah.
And how would you've obviously worked in film and TV, that's what a lot of people know you for, but you also worked in theatre. And I wondered, how would you describe your early experiences in the theatre, and how do they kind of compare to your work in TV or on TV and film sets?
I began my career on stage, which then was also accompanied by work on radio, which I've done for the rest of throughout all of my career. So the two were kind of speaking to one another about the full physicality of theatre, but then the full physicality of just the voice in audio. So I loved that kind of correspondence between the two parts. I think there's something incredibly exposing about radio because you're painting very particular pictures with a part of your body that's very exposed. I love the fact that the voice is placed in a very exposed area in the body. So if you get it right, audio stuff can be intimately thrilling. But I also trained as a dancer when I was younger, so theatre felt like a place where I could be happily embodied. And then moving into screen stuff, you then use your body in a very different way. So things are much more contained and stiller and more specific.
You obviously can't beat a British gangster thriller. There's so many great ones. I wondered, did you have any favourites when you were growing up?
I went to a girls' school, and I think it was very interesting to view and experience the power play that go on in a single-sex school, and to notice who are the most powerful. And it was often the smallest people in the class who held the greatest power base. And I found that very, very intriguing. Not so much when I became the target of the control, the way that all children experience. I don't think that I watched gangster TV shows or films when I was young. So I think it was really just looking at how people handle power and the desire to hold on to their control, which I found at times intriguing but also quite repellent.
I mean, obviously, like Cecilia as a character, she's like this no-nonsense businesswoman. I thought it was really great. It's obviously a bit of a different role that, fans might not expect you to be in necessarily. I wondered, with that in mind, what you just said, like, did you kind of draw on those experiences to like shape the way you approach the character, or did you want to approach it in another way?
Cecilia Logan is a very exotic bird in her own world. She doesn't have other female compatriots. She doesn't have friends. Her most intimate connection is with her younger brother Don, but it's a complicated relationship because she's his older sister, but also a mother figure. So it's very complex. So I don't think there are many women out there that I could sort of draw on experientially. I read a really fabulous book called Queens of the Underworld by Caitlin Davis, who looks at historically the women who are at the top of their pyramid criminally, and bizarrely have been sort of criminally overlooked because the stories of male gangland kingpins are so dominant, and the stories of the women are all seen as being kind of like sidekicks or add-ons or gangsters' moles or Well, Cutpurse, was one of the original ones in like the 17th century, and but it's always in relation to men. And I found that really intriguing about Cecilia is that she's a queenpin, and she doesn't operate in relation to men within her world. She's created this world that she controls. But then you very soon find out that she's actually got connections with the kingpins in the other world. So, Teddy Bass, who is the one who holds most of the power cards, has actually been invited into her world to give Gal and Don an in to climbing up the hierarchy. She's the one. So I found all of that very, very intriguing.
Obviously, the original Sexy Beast is kind of considered one of the great British classics. And I wondered, do you remember your first introduction to British cinema and really kind of understanding what that meant as a genre?
I loved the film Sexy Beast when it first came out. I was, however, in the time of working a lot and also having my third child. So at the time, I don't think I gave myself fully to things because, your head is so full of other stuff. But I remember thinking at the time that this is a really interesting story because all of these people seem so afraid. Even the Don Logan character who turns up with all of his power and energy and bulldogishness, behind that fury there's always fear. And I felt I really leaned into that. And everybody is terrified. When you first sit down, that really awkward scene where they're all, and you think, what has gone on? And I think that's why Sexy Beast, the prequel, is so interesting because I think everybody feels that when they see the film. It's like, what has happened to these people?
It's Ray Winstone. He's a great, great actor of the British cinema scene. But was there anyone from that era of gangster films or British gangster films that you tried to channel when it came to your performance?
Yeah, I don't know that I try and channel particular characters in my way of working. I was very captivated by films like Reservoir Dogs, where those kind of alternatives as people are presented with that fabulous way of making music, the accompaniment, the kind of underbelly to the scenes and the characters. And the playfulness of that you watch something of extreme assault and then you have a catchy tune over the top of it. It's so devastatingly contradictory. So I think that's what I was thinking about with Cecilia and drawing on that, is that how, because, she's very tough. She's a very tough cookie. And, it's hard enough playing her, but being in her company, you can only, it's like anchovy. You can only have so much in the dish before it takes over.
Everyone loves Friday night dinner. I wondered, do you have like a favourite moment from your time working on that?
Oh, that show. I mean, we did a 10-minute teaser in 2009 to pitch to the channel. And it was, I never think things are going to go. I always just turn up and we'll see what happens. So I turned up to do this 10-minute teaser, knowing that I was going to be working with Paul Ritter, who played my husband in it, Marston Goodman. And just being, that sort of tingly feeling of being in the presence of someone who's really brilliant with their craft. And I think I remember that feeling of like, when they first said, we're casting this and we're trying to get this guy called Paul Ritter, and I was like, I'm in, straight, because I'd seen him on stage. So having the opportunity to do stuff with him, and then obviously with Mark Heap playing the neighbour and those, Tom Rosenthal and Simon Bird, all brilliant performers in their own right, very playful and alive. And Robert Popper, the writer, was always saying faster, faster, faster. He just wanted it fast. So that being involved in that kind of energy was thrilling. It's hard. You're in a house, you can't go anywhere. But what was really interesting is that when the 6th series was aired, it was during lockdown, and everybody navigated towards that show because the show is stuck in its own house. That house is like a character in the show. that contains them, and they're drawn home because it's home. They turn into idiot children as soon as they step over the threshold, and the house just contains the wildness that then happens. But I think people were experiencing that in lockdown, how they could survive being contained in the wildness of this global weirdness.
I wonder, are there any roles in general that you would love to return to if you ever got the chance?
I do find it hard to watch stuff that I did when I was younger because I see so much of what I didn't achieve. But I wonder whether that's what gives it its credibility, is that you come with an innocence and a not finishedness. So there's a raw complexity about that. I don't think I would want to return to stuff so much as move forward into, I love performing Shakespeare, and I've had some great opportunities with that. So I think that, continuing to lean into, so I would return to particular writers, and, I would return to Shakespeare because there's so much to be learned and experienced and revealed about the human condition in that poetry. I never know what's coming, and I'm always thrilled about what turns up.
What were the movies that you loved growing up, and do you remember your first cinema trip?
Oh, I think my first cinema trip was going to see a Disney animation, possibly Bambi or Dumbo, one of those. When I was in my early teens, I went to see the movie Grease in the cinema, and I loved it so much that I went every day for a week. I didn't understand it. There were bits just like, I don't know what's happening there, but never mind. In the back of the car with Rizzo, no idea what was going on there, but I couldn't get enough of it. We didn't go much to the cinema. There wasn't a whole lot of cash around for those sorts of trips, but I remember every now and then my mum saying, watch this film. And I remember one time it was showing me A Matter of Life and Death, the Niven film, where he's a fighter pilot who goes down in his plane gets hit and he goes down into the water, but the French angel who's meant to collect his soul misses him in the British fog and he doesn't die. And what I found so remarkable is that my mum had said, watch this. Because she never did, we were all in our own little worlds, really. I remember watching a film with Jenny Agutter called Walkabout with my mum late at night when I couldn't sleep, and I got up and I thought she'd shout at me and go back to bed. But I sat down and watched, and it was quite an unsettling film, and her saying to me at the end, don't worry, it's just on the telly. It's just on the telly. So that became a phrase of our family of like, you don't have to worry, it's just on the telly. And I remember me, when I was a little bit older, saying that to her when I saw something on the news. I was saying, don't worry, it's just on the telly. I mean, it was real, it was the news, but it became a way of kind of removing yourself.
Did you have any mentors or figures in your life that really helped set you up in your journey as an actor?
Well, my mum had done performance when they lived abroad in the kind of amateur scene, which had at that time a much more kind of professional vibe about it. It was sort of seen as semi-professional, so it was well received. So she had done a lot of that, and so my interest in it was accepted, but they never thought that it would be something that I could earn a living from. For my mum it was a hobby, but I wanted to make it a thing that could sustain you. So I think her experience of play is profoundly important. So I think probably her. But then just, seeing brilliant performers and going, wow, how do you do that?
If you could go back in time and give young Tamsin any advice on what to do or what to do to change her origin story, what would it be and why?
I think our origin stories are what they are. And so going back to change things, as we know in the space-time continuum, it's going to tear. You just live what you live. But I think I would encourage her to not be so afraid, to not think that response of it's okay, it's just on the telly. It's frightening, it's overwhelming, but you don't have to be afraid.